You're listening to Passing Time, a Detroit Lions podcast. We're one pride and all grit, with a passion for Detroit Lions football. Whether you're between meetings, between classes, sitting in traffic, or just relaxing at home, if you have time to pass, pass it with Passing Time. Detroit Lions Talk.
Welcome back. Last show of season 1.
All right.
Episode number
37.
37. I think I gave us episode number 35 twice, last week and then the week before. It kind of reminds me of, I thought I was 37 for 2 years in a row. I was actually 36 one year, but I told everybody I was 37. And then I turned 37 and I realized I was 37, so I got to be 37 twice. Again. I was kind of felt like I got a year back. So you get an episode back here. Thank you for passing time with us. We are a Detroit Lions podcast. I'm Rob.
I'm Brian.
And we're going to bring the heat. We're coming off a big win.
Last game of the season. Big win.
Albeit a disappointing end of the season to not be talking more football next week.
I agree, but we've got a ton to talk about.
We do, yes, absolutely. So we appreciate you tuning in with us each week. This is a weekly podcast. We've held that true, and we are excited to bring you season 2 starting next week.
Yeah, all right.
So, Brian, let's get after it.
All right, but before we get after it, before we talk about some football, before we get into the ins and outs of the Detroit Lions, we want to send some thoughts and prayers out to family and friends of Miss Elizabeth Westrick. Miss Elizabeth was one of our biggest fans, watched us religiously, and passed away this past weekend. So our thoughts go out to her and her family and to those friends that help support her, and she will be duly missed. So
absolutely. Thank you to her family. Thank you to her for watching the show, listening to the show, buying us swag, encouraging us to keep kind of rolling on. If only you could be so loyal and be like Miss Elizabeth. So our call-in today would be like, hey, give one up for her, man. Follow the show, like the show, pass the show on to a friend. Keep us on the algorithm. This is going to be a long off season. We're going to bring the heat. We're going to keep you in touch with the Lions all year long. Thank you, Miss Elizabeth, for supporting the show. Lions close the season with a 1916 victory over the Chicago Bears in Chicago.
Over Benedict Johnson.
How did it feel?
To me, it felt weird. It felt, it was funny because I went into that game a little conflicted, a little empty, a little like lackluster. But as that game rolled on, I felt my energy coming back. Us going up 16-0. I was back. I was excited. The Bears coming back and tying it up. I was, torn and anxiety filled and edge of my seat, and very, very ecstatic at the end of that game. So
yeah, I'm, being a Lions fan for my whole life, I've come to love the draft. Yep. I absolutely love the draft, and before the game, I felt myself getting into like, a better pick might be nice.
Yeah.
So I let like my natural self watch this game to try to figure out if I was really wanting the Lions to win, if I was wanting the Lions to lose. And there was no doubt about it. I wanted the Lions to win. It happened pretty early.
Right.
And then it started happening often.
And I was right there too, because you think about some of the flexibility that we can get with a 13th pick over a 17th pick, and at that point I didn't care. I was like, let's beat the Bears. Let's win this game. Let's go out on a high note. Let's go off on a fourth straight winning season. And do what we do as Lions fans.
Yeah. So emotionally, where are you at right now? Are you proud of this team? Are you frustrated?
I'm ready. It was an emotional roller coaster all season long, and I have to tell you, I'm ready to wipe that clean, and I'm ready to start fresh, and I'm ready to dive into the hopes and dreams and wonders of what will be in 2026, and look at all of the ins and outs of what will allow us to get back to the top of the NFC North.
Yeah, I mean, Lions go out and they play hard for each other. They play hard for their coach. They have their stars out there, and they played hard whistle to whistle through the whole game. And that momentum that you carry through that last game, that might get you, a Roy Lopez re-signing with the Lions. It might get you something that won't fully ever be appreciated. But they played hard. The guys went out on a slightly positive note, and what kind of dividends do you think that could pay for the Lions?
I mean, if it's not a Roy Lopez, or if it's not an Amik Robertson, it's somebody looking at the Lions and saying, "Hey, I want to play for them. I want to play for those guys. I want to be a part of that." And we're gonna get into some of those quotes and those locker room clean out type interviews, and what is said about the team. But this is a team that people still want to be a part of.
Yeah, and we're also going to get into draft position, cap space, why 2026, why it might be one step back to take two steps forward, and which is, feels like wishful thinking, but we got some data behind that. Bill's bullet points.
Yep.
Bill has something to say. Bill, hey, Bill's going to come on this pod. He's close. He just, he's encourage him, leave it in the comments. You want to see Bill himself, is Bill a softie? Is he an old curmudgeon? You'll never know until we get him on the podcast. Coaching carousel. There's some big names. We're recording this, Brian. I can't even. It's
Tuesday night.
It's Tuesday night.
Yep.
The whole Christmas on a Thursday and the Friday and the New Year's. It's throwing my whole schedule off. But there's some big firings in the NFL. We'll talk about that by the time you're watching this. You've already heard about it. And finally, we're going to close out season 1, and we're going to talk about what comes next for passing time.
Let's go.
So first, let's just get into review the game a little bit. The 9-8 Lions and the 11-5 Bears.
All right. Well, 19-16 victory over the Bears. Jake Bates with a no-doubter to close it out.
Yep.
And season is over.
Season's over. Yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like...
No, it shouldn't be, right? It doesn't feel like it should be, but it is.
The other guys podcast, and they might have had seasons over before, but this is our first,
first season's over, right?
So,
It's I would say when that kick went through, I was, again, like I said, ecstatic. I was ready. I was happy for our team, and I was excited to beat the Bears.
Yes.
Something that we've been debating. I've been talking to Bill about it. I mentioned it to Rob before the pod, and it talked a little bit about the Bears as a newish rival. I know we've always been rivals, but kind of taking the place of maybe a Packers. I've always hated the Packers. As a Lions fans, I hated the Packers. I hate the Cheeseheads. Wanted to nothing but bad things for them. But now that's kind of rolling into the Bears even more today, and I'm trying to debate to myself, who do I hate worse right now? And I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, where you at though? If you had to take a heat check here, and you had to, they're playing tug of war for your hatred. Who's pulling the rope a little further?
I think right now, today, it's got to be the Bears. I think that them going worst to first has something to do with it. Them, have taken Ben Johnson is got something to do with it.
Among other coaches and
among other players. And, them just, I feel like right now, I don't believe in them. I think that has something to do with it as well. That I don't believe that they're going to go anywhere in these playoffs. I believe that they're very much reliant on the turnover. I believe that they're not going to do anything.
Yeah.
And I might be wrong, but at the same time, I just that's where my feelings go towards those Bears.
Yeah. I still think I slightly dislike the Packers more. And Steve, and a friend of the pod, Steve, your hatred for the Lions since moving to Michigan and being a big Packers fan has fueled my hatred right back to the Packers. But I come from a divided family. My wife's a Bears fan. My wife's side of the family, they're from Gary, Indiana. They're all Bears fans. They think they're from Chicago. Actually, you're from a worse city, which is hard to do. You're from Gary. but so I've always had a little, I rub it in, and I get rubbed in quite often with the Bears.
But like the more important is, how are you raising your children? Are you raising them correctly, or are you letting them go to the dark side?
My kids are going to be raised right, Brian.
That's right. Okay, that's the most important thing there.
For Christmas, my middle guy got 2 Lions jerseys.
Okay.
My older guy got 1 Lions hoodies. My wife / Santa Claus delivered. They do an outfit. Delivered by their elf the night before Christmas, and she went out and bought Lions gear.
Nice.
She it's just a non-starter, right?
Sure.
It's just a non-starter. So,
sure.
That's just the way it is in our family. And
That's
Brian,
good.
I don't have to ask you.
You don't have to ask me. My boys are Lions fans through and through.
Yeah,
So.
and there's no competition in that household. So let's break down who are some of the key contributors, key guys for the big win against the Bears.
I mean, you looked at Jared Goff, and he is as efficient as you can ask. 27 of 42 for 331 and a touchdown. He did have that interception, which I think he forced that one into Amon-Ra. Didn't go his way, bounced around and got picked off. Which the end of the game, you do ask yourselves, what are you doing, Dan Campbell? What are some of these play calls? Why, Monty, are you running out of bounds when I could have taken it down to the 2-minute warning? So these are some of the question marks as you kind of trail into that. But Goff had a good game. Amon-Ra did what Amon-Ra does. He 11 receptions for 139 yards. He was a Bears killer, and it was crazy enough. Is I feel like Goff had their number. He was picking on CJ, GJ, Gardner Johnson, and finding him. He's a step behind in all of his man coverages, and picking Amon-Ra and J-Mo, and then maybe some Tesla here and there, Khalif towards the end, and making it look good. So.
Yeah, and he GJ actually went out. I think he might be done for the year. Despite the loss, the Bears. The whole NFC kind of got watered down in that last third of the season. The Eagles and the Bears, the Packers, some of these teams that looked really, really Lions. Looked really, really promising. Got watered down. I mean, the Buccaneers. I mean, they
didn't make it to the end, right? So you look at all these teams who we looked at the beginning of the season that were going to be like the elites, and then it kind of just watered down that middle. Everybody kind of melded into each other. You look at the NFC North, and you have nothing but winning teams, 3 of which with 9 wins, and only one of those 9-win teams made the playoffs.
So I think this offseason we have to take a stronger look at maybe what could happen, some surprises. We get a little chalky, right? It's easy to get chalky. But the Panthers were one of those surprises, really. I mean, there's been the Bears, we didn't think that they had this in them, right?
And you look at statistically, those Bears, they're still not quite there yet. They were very much reliant on the turnover and
the fourth quarter.
But at the same time, Caleb Williams had a career year. Not only that, but highlight reel for the Bears, breaking records and so on. But didn't quite make his 4,000 yards, which was okay with.
Yeah, I'm not gonna cry over that.
No pettiness there. There is.
No. So they played a 4th place schedule going into this season. They had really high draft picks. I think they still had draft picks that were traded to them. So they had a little extra chips, and they had an easier path than a lot of teams.
And you may have seen it, but the Lions are going to be able to reap some of the benefits of a 4th place in the NFC North, having that schedule.
We'll get into that, Brian. We'll get into that.
But yeah, the Bears are yet to be, I would say, yet to be established. Are they going to be able to go in on Saturday and beat the Packers in Chicago?
Yeah. I think they lack a little bit of that grit factor. They got that fake grit. Ben Johnson fake grit. So would you, I think I know the answer to this, but would you trade, 2 losses to the Bears this season with all your hatred, your new biggest rival, and you flip that and say we lose both of the Bears, but the Lions get the 7th seed and make the playoffs?
That means we're playing the Bears again?
No, let's just say that say the Bears are out of it. Let's just trade places or whatever it might be. But Would you trade that?
I think the answer is yes. The answer is yes. I would trade losses to the Bears in order to continue our season.
Yeah.
And have our hopes alive for an NFC Championship game and a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
So
yeah. So were you like me? You get into that fourth quarter and the Bears start surging a little bit. Then you hear the Tom Brady talking about the Bears being a fourth quarter team, and then the Lions, coming off 3-game losing streak, and it just feels like, oh boy, here we go again. Or were you confident that like we were gonna put them away?
I'm a Lions fan, and there's no confidence.
Yeah.
Especially until that last knee is taken. Like there's no confidence. We kind of talked a little bit about this Monty getting that first down and then going out of bounds to stop the clock before the 2-minute warning. It's like, well, what are we doing? And then, throw, interception. It just is like we're trying to give the Bears every opportunity to come back and win that game. Thankfully, Goff is Goff, and Bates hit that game-winning 42-yard field goal to ice it with no time left, and made me feel a little bit better about it.
Yeah.
So,
thoughts on the Bears headed into the playoffs?
I don't have confidence in them either. They're coming off of lost 2 in a row. They're playing the Packers. The only thing that I can say about the Packers is that the Packers are banged up, and the Packers have lost 4 in a row, limping into the playoffs.
Yeah.
But they're getting some of their pieces back. Jordan Love, it will be back for this game. Looks like Malik Willis is banged up and not playing this game, but we'll see what kind of comes from that. Your thoughts?
My thoughts, they just got a good draw, right? It's a pillow fight with two teams that have really struggled down the stretch, not healthy. The Bears were at home playing all their guys, trying to beat the Lions. The Packers rested their guys,
Everybody
preparing for this. Like, I think the Packers are going to win round 1. I'm pulling up right now just to see what Vegas thinks about this game. Last I checked, the Packers were slight favorites. Yeah, the Packers are 1.5 point favorites going into this game, which is
at Chicago, which typically leans towards the home team, right?
Yeah, that's pretty wild. It opened at 1.5. It's currently at 1.5. 66% of the bets are coming on Chicago, and Vegas is saying we're good.
Yeah,
we're good. So that tells you Vegas, they're not jockeying around this line. We could see some movement later in the week, but that's interesting to me.
Yeah. We'll see. If you listen to Dan Campbell's presser, he says, like, you got to watch these games. It's got to hurt a little bit, even if you don't want to. So
yeah. Thoughts on anything else with the Bears? Kind of besides, I guess, who are you rooting for this week?
For that or for the entire playoffs?
Just that one game.
I'm not rooting for anybody. Can they both? Can this game last forever and everybody on the field get hurt?
There's no hedging this. Who would you be more satisfied to root for to win this game?
We've been saying, like, to be honest, we've been saying that the Bears have been frauds from day one, right? From the beginning of the season. And if they get bounced in the first game of the playoffs to a team that's battered and beaten, that would solidify our thoughts. So I guess I'm leaning more towards Matt LaFleur and Jordan Love.
Okay, all right. So are you gonna put the cheese on the head?
No.
Right.
Again, I want this game to last forever. I want everybody on the field to get hurt, and they have to cancel the game because there's nobody left to play.
But you're watching. You're watching football.
I'm watching football.
We're getting to the end of our. Hey, family, we're watching football today. We're going to pretty soon start hanging out with our families.
Well, I can start watching the Pistons and the Wings.
Yeah. Love it. So this offseason, there are a few guys that we should monitor, and you gave us some press conference notes about Taylor Decker, Dan Skipper, Graham Glasgow. Like, are you expecting anything with retirements?
Yeah, you listen to some of those guys after the game. You listen to some of those guys in the locker room on Monday, and you got to question. I mean, you got to question as Taylor Decker played his last game as a Lion. And from his words, emotional, yes, but the dude has been through the ringer. I mean, the dude has played every bit of what we would have wanted from our left tackle, all while dealing with so many injuries and so much rehab and therapies and treatments. And I mean, if you listen to him, he talks about red light treatments and acupunctures and chambers and injections, and he just feels like he is not right now able to give to his family, and he wants to be able to give to his family as much as he can. He doesn't want to be selfish.
Still a relatively young guy. He's playing a tough position, played a lot of football, but
Yep.
Age wise, you probably have a year or two left in the tank.
Mm-hmm.
But
you do, but one of your best friends is Frank Ragnow, who has spent the year kind of fishing and hunting, and that might look good. So.
Yeah. So right now, is he a Lion next year?
Right now, no. I think
Okay.
Taylor Decker has played his last game.
What about Skip?
I think Skip has also played his last game. Skip would be, I think he's starting to be replaced. He's got some injuries that he's been dealing with as well, and I think he's moving on. Whether he plays somewhere else or he retires, I think that Skip is no longer a Lion.
Okay. What about Graham, like the cracker?
So Graham is interesting. You listen to him, and it sounds like he's gonna be back. Now, I love Graham, and I appreciate what he's done for this team. His willingness to be flexible, playing right guard, left guard, or center. And I hope that he is able or willing to be our backup right guard, left guard, or center.
Yeah.
I just think that we need to do more in order to solidify those positions than Graham. And I think that Graham would be an amazing piece to in depth. But if you have to rely on him to be a starter in those positions, I think that we may have some similar struggles this year.
Yeah. I don't think he was the major problem, but
No.
he certainly wasn't like pushing us over the edge either.
No, and to his credit, like when he was out against the Steelers and when he was out against the Vikings, we struggled more, right? I think that he is somebody that helped this team all the way through the season. But I do think that his best football is behind him. So
Okay. So let's play locker room clean out day. I say the name, you give me a quote, a thought
Okay,
as
a
it
couple
relates
Sure.
to each player, okay?
yeah.
Sam Laporta.
Hopeful he'll be back for training camp. It sounds like a herniated disc, surgery. Nothing he wants to continue to try to fight through. It's actually better for him to have the surgery done and hopefully be back next year.
Okay. Panay Sewell.
He dealt with injury, but he talks about how he did not play his best football. Wants to get back to that, and I think that he is going to do the little things that I think Dan might start ask again from him. Connect with his teammates more in the offseason, find the camaraderie, and move forward better in 2026.
Okay. Amon-Ra.
Amon-Ra is hungry. I think he is not going to allow what happened this year to happen next year.
Okay. J-Mo.
J-Mo had a fun season. J-Mo's a fun guy. He always has a smile on his face. He said that, this season was fun, but at the same time, it didn't go the way that we wanted it to. But, I mean, he's still going to enjoy the game of football. I think this kid loves football.
Yeah. All right. You got energy, you got wind. You want to keep going here?
Hey, give it to me, man.
All right. How about a Meek?
I'm scared. I want a Meek back, but I think a Meek is going to go where he's valued. I think Meek talked about like putting his trust in God, and that kind of what led him to the Lions. I hope that God leads him back, but I think that the price tag might be too high.
Yeah, well, God is he. You talk about dollars. I think that's what's going to be leading him to the next place. So, speaking of guys that could or could not be back, and we talked briefly. What about Roy Lopez?
Roy, he was a fun guy. I mean, when he talked to the in the locker room. He seemed to have enjoyed his time here in Detroit. He says he loves this place, that he loves playing for Coach Campbell, and that he at someday wants to be a coach himself, and learning from a guy who is coaching from his heart. That's a testament. That's something that guys from the outside looking in are going to say, yes, I want to play for him.
Yeah, that's an interesting angle. So maybe something where you take a little bit of a discount because you appreciate the way that this guy's doing things, and you want to jump on that staff someday.
Yeah, and there's I feel like Roy had a good enough season this past year to contribute again, even with an Aleem and a Tyleek, and we can get into those guys later. So.
Yeah, all right. What about Glasgow?
I believe
he has a series of kind of
Glasgow's fun. Like he has these little quirks about him. He has these little like these little sarcasms that go along with him. But he talks about like, hey, are you thinking of contemplating retirement? Because I mean, they just talked about the Skip, and they talked to Decker, and they're like talking to him. He's like, well, I'm under contract for 2 more years. I hope I'm a Lion, you know. Yeah. So he, as of now, he plans on being a Lion. Sounds like he's coming back. He talked about his contribution to Tate Ratledge and his growth, and he's like, a conceited person would say that it was all about me that helped him become the player he is, and I'm not a conceited person, wink wink, you know. So he's like, it's just fun to hear him and his kind of banter with the media. So
all right, what about DJ Reader?
DJ Reader, I feel like is gone. Like, I feel like he's ready to move forward. You see some of his banter with the fans on social media, but he'd still like, he wanted to end the season right. He felt like this season was special to him, but I feel like he's ready to no longer be a Lion.
What about a breakout guy like Muhammad?
Muhammad, he's an interesting fellow as well. I feel like he had a great season, and he appreciated the opportunity that the Lions gave him, but I also think that he's wanting to be where he's valued. And I think value has to come in the sign of dollars.
Yes, so. Absolutely. Anzalone. Oh, I'm curious here.
I love Alex, and I'm not gonna lie. I want them to give him a fair price. I just don't know if they can afford to. I would love to bring Alex Anzalone back. He made it very clear that he wants to retire a Detroit Lion, but that it's not necessarily in his hands, and that it will be hard to move on. He says, you know, he came in and he had a baby, and now he's got 3. So it's like, you know, moving and all the other stuff is difficult, but he's gonna have to do what is given to him. So.
Yeah. What about the best running back in the NFL?
Jameer had very few words, but he said that something's missing. You know, whatever it was, he's not sure. But they're gonna go ahead and like in the offseason find it, and then they're gonna look into it, and they're gonna to make sure that they have it for the 2026 season.
All right, let's talk about some younger guys. What about Tyleek?
Tyleek continues to grow. He says that he kind of started the season on a high, had some injuries mid-season, and then ended the season on the high. He said he's grown throughout the season, better in his IQ, and ultimately he would grade himself at a C or C+.
Okay, all right. Well, sounds like a Campbell kind of guy. Yeah. Campbell might even be a tougher grader,
grader, right?
What about your boy Tate?
Tate, man, he gives all his credits and growth, a ton of his credits and growth to Graham Glasgow in order to build him up, teach him, and allow him to be who he is. He talked a little bit. He goes, "Man, football's a lot harder up here," you know. So his transition between college, where he felt like he kind of had a grasp on things, to the speed and the knowledge that he needed as a professional, and that, you know, he's going to continue to try to get better. So.
Yeah. Interesting angle there. You know, Graham wants to be around for a couple more years. You invested, you know, pretty big draft capital into a guy showing flashes. It's good to just have that guy there, right? If that's his biggest mentor, he's played 3 different spots on the line. He's a veteran. It's worth having him around. Yep. And finally, a guy that you and I have kind of disagreed a little bit on this year is, what about Tesla?
You know, Isaac talked about his exit meeting and needs to work, some of the things that he needs to work on. He talked about meeting with Scotty Montgomery and saying quickness and separation, which I think we all have seen. You know, it's, you know, getting pressed off the line and being able to get those clean breaks, being able to not have to make every catch contested, but that he's really happy to be a part of this. He came into this season, this being his dream, and now it's just part of his reality. So it's cool to see a guy that grew up in Michigan who was a Lions fan and is now just a Lion.
Yeah. All right. You want to talk a little bit about Dan Campbell's media session?
Well, I mean, Dan said a lot and a little all at the same time, right? I mean, this was Monday, so this is yesterday. Talked about he's going to force himself to watch the playoffs. He's going to make it hurt a little bit because he knows where they need to be. He's going to make his players aware of that as well. Says that he's going to do whatever he is going to do in order to help his team. He's going to do what's best for his team, whether that means that he's going to continue play calling or find the next guy. But he said he's going to start with his coaches. He's going to establish and determine, who's in the right spot, who's not. And I'm going to tell you right now, as of Tuesday night, they moved on from John Morton. So John Morton as OC is no longer a Lions coach. And whether we put all trust in Dan to continue the play calling or they go elsewhere and find somebody else. David Blau is somebody that is on the radar, a former Lions backup, played with us from 2019 to 2021 and was formerly the Commanders QB coach. Is somebody who's going to get an interview for that OC job at this point as well.
That's just kind of the early speculation chatter. That's what we're hearing right now.
Right now.
So Brian, you and I think we think a little bit differently here, but personally, I'd be very disappointed if we went into next year and Dan Campbell was the play caller.
Some of the things that Dan said in his presser, which made sense and it kind of resonated a little bit. And maybe it was even a jab at Ben Johnson, was the fact that he's like, listen, if I'm the play caller, like, we're not going to lose the play caller year after year after year. There's that consistency that goes along with the head coach calling the plays. Now, in saying that, I have a hard time because I think he is a better CEO of this team. He is able to pay attention to the details. He's able to put his hands on everything and feel the pulse of his team, rather than just focus on that offensive side. And I think that's where I think we struggle. And I can appreciate where you struggle as well, because I think having an OC allows Dan to be that CEO.
And this team has had some clock management issues. They have a rookie defensive coordinator with not a lot of experience coaching. That's a team that needs a CEO. It's not a team that needs a guy that's just going to focus on offensive play calling.
I don't disagree. I mean, you looked at some of the clock management. You looked at some of the challenges that went along with it. You looked at just overall details that went into whether it's practice or game time preparations. It wasn't there, and that has to fall on Dan. And if you ask Dan, he would take on all that responsibility. He'll give himself a freaking F and say he's got to be better.
Yeah. What grade would you give Dan for 2025?
I mean, he fell short of our expectations, right? He fell short of the standard. And whether that standard was making playoffs or winning the NFC North or even a Super Bowl, that's got to be our standard, right? And so I wouldn't give him an F, but he may have passed with a D in my book.
Wait. Does your school district pass
D+?
kids with D's?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, all right. D's get degrees?
D's are passing.
Okay.
Failure is an F.
Okay, all right.
So,
all right.
It's not a great grade. Don't get me wrong. I mean, it's not acceptable, but
all right. So, if kids of the school district, if you're listening, he will pass you with a D, but he's not going to write you a Valentine's Day card.
Some intervention, if you will.
So, keeping your educator hat on here, what grade would you give Morton?
Morton was an F. I mean,
it's an F. Okay.
At this point, he's no longer a Lion, and because of his failures, they dismissed him.
Okay. What grade would you give Shep?
I would say Shep is probably I don't know. I'm giving him a D+. But he's it seems like he's open to some tutoring.
Okay. Do you think he started getting a little tutoring towards the end of the season.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the game against the Bears, and they did very little that you would have expected, right? And to me, that is the glimmer of hope that if they do keep on Shep as our DC, his ability to be open to things that are not necessarily his defense, that makes me feel a little bit better. I was proud of him in the Baltimore game where he was willing to play a spy on Lamar Jackson when he openly said, I despise the spy. That was a piece of it. But then you get into the end of the season and we play the Bears and we play almost completely zone coverage versus which we've been playing man every other game before that. It shows me that he's willing to do what's needed. Now, do I want him to be able to be a little bit quicker in his adjustments, be quicker in his flexibility? Yes, I want him to be able to come into a game and say, hey, here's what I'm going to start with, but these are my contingency plans, B, C, D, E, and F along the lines, and I'm ready for each of those as they come. I didn't see that, and that's where my concern comes more.
Yeah, so I feel like the CEO and Dan Campbell probably lent some assistance, saying, here's what Ben Johnson's tendencies are. Here's what we need to do schematically to switch this up. To me, it's like his fingerprints were all over this. So the defense outperformed when that happens. When your play caller, your CEO is spending more time over here, your offense didn't put the numbers up that they're statistically typical used to putting up. Where if you have a guy like Dan Campbell that can really lead into the offense and can help out with the defense, that can talk about some views from 3,000 feet above, some macro views, and let the micro stuff get focused out. I think that's where your coach is in his best spot.
And I don't disagree with you. If that's the case,
it's irrefutable. You can't disagree with that.
If I know what was going on in that room, in those training and those planning sessions, I could tell you more. But at this point, I have to give Dan credit for this. Shep was a piece of that as well. And what we don't think about is Dan knows the ins and outs of Ben, and he knows the ins and outs of Dennis Allen, who is the D coordinator over at the Bears right now too, who he worked with over in New Orleans.
Oh, right. Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about upcoming things. So Brad Holmes talks in a couple days. By the time you're hearing this, he's going to talk probably tomorrow, or he just got done talking on Thursday.
Sure.
It'd be interesting to hear what he's going to have to say.
Yeah, I am very intrigued, and I'll throw something out. Rob is off on vacay, coming this weekend, so I'll throw something out in my response towards Brad's his talk to the media. I wonder if he brings receipts or if he's a little bit more humbled.
Okay,
I'm very intrigued because I think that's going to be very telling going into the offseason.
So you don't think I'm going to be drinking out of a couple coconuts? And maybe I'll get fired up and I'll record a video,
Do you know how to do that,
Rob? Touche. I don't have a great comeback. With that being said, the Lions are drafting 17th overall. Lost 3 spots with that win.
Yeah, they did, and to me, it's worth every spot.
Yeah.
Whether it means the psychological edge that we're going to have with Ben Johnson and the Bears moving forward, or whether that means that we're ending the season with another winning record, or at least just that feel good going into a long stretch without football.
Yeah. So draft party will be interesting. We won't have to wait until midnight for this pick. This pick will be coming,
right in the middle
there, which will be fun. Knowing the Lions, they might jockey around a little bit. That's what they like to do.
Yes, but our picks are limited. We have a first, we have a second, and then we have a fourth, and then some other picks down in the later rounds. So
as it stands right now.
Yeah,
that's all subject to change.
Yep,
the delta there has been very high with the Lions. So
fair.
Strength of schedule for 2026.
Yeah.
You put a short out with a nice graphic on there, but what that graphic showed you is the Lions are at 27th. As it stands right now, teams are going to upgrade, and a lot of things are going to happen. But the Lions are 27th, the Vikings at 11th, the Packers at third, and the Bears have the toughest overall schedule next year.
As of right now, that's the way it is, and we all know the teams that we think right now that will be good may not be good, and the teams that we think right now that are going to be bad may not be bad. And that's the way that the NFL goes. This flexibility and movement of teams in and out of, from first to worst and worst to first. But right now, I think we will very much benefit from a little bit easier of a schedule.
No doubt. It will help. Yeah. What's Bill think about all this?
Oh, Bill is going to live right now in his glory in the off season. He loves, being able to have those hopes and dreams come alive and say, hey, Brad, give me a ring. Here's my number. And let me know how you want to move forward, because he's got all the answers. He does look at, our DC as the ultimate room, or the biggest reason to blame, because he believes that each game is decided on 3 to 5 decisions, 3 to 5 plays, and he truly believes that Shep made 3 to 5 bad calls each game, and those 3 to 5 bad calls may have been the reason that we didn't score one more touchdown in one of those extra games in order to push us into the playoffs.
So, maybe Shep didn't make 3 to 5 bad calls, but maybe he didn't adjust to 3 to 5 good calls that maybe a veteran D coordinator might have done.
And that's true. And maybe it waited until week 18 in order to, move from, we don't have our top 2 safeties, and we may not be able to play a man primarily. We might have to adjust to a zone scheme or alternate between the two, and it took until that last week of the season in order to make that adjustment.
All right.
He then relies, kind of puts the next blame on Frank, and whether that's warranted or not, Frank retiring when he did and not having him as the center of our offensive line had that huge ripple effect, and that ripple effect went from our offensive line to quarterback to running game, and then into the receivers. I mean, it was definitely impactful, offensively and defensively.
Well, let me ask you this: if Frank plays and he's healthy, the majority of the season, are the Lions? Are we doing a podcast next week talking about the Lions' next game?
100%.
Yeah,
I 100% believe that this season is different. Given the fact that we have, the best center in all of football leading our team.
Okay. All right. Anything else with Frank?
No. I mean, I can understand that he wanted to come back. I'm still interested on whether we may or may not see him in the future. It sounds like no, but we'll go from there.
All right. Coaching carousel as it stands right now. There's been some big names have hit the coaching portal. Yeah.
And, I mean, we're only a little bit Sunday to Tuesday away from the end of the season, and we have 7 head coaches now dismissed. Brian Daboll was dismissed earlier, but Pete Carroll, Kevin Stefanski, Raheem Morris, Jonathan Gannon, John Harbaugh.
It's mind-blowing. Absolutely mind-blowing. Like,
crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Dude, I love Dan Campbell. Love. And I wouldn't give him up basically for any other coach in the NFL. But if you told me, like, you could get John Harbaugh, I would think about that. I'm like, you know what? All right, let's actually think. Nobody else. Nobody else really, even Andy Reid, none of those guys excite me, but John Harbaugh,
he's a leader of men. I mean, he's kind of cut from the same Dan Campbell cloth. He is somebody who I feel like has integrity and character and wants to do all the things right. And been doing it for a long time. I mean, he's got the resume.
Mm-hmm.
18 years at Baltimore, 12 of which he made the playoffs, won a Super Bowl, winning season after winning season. And then dismissed because your rookie kicker missed a field goal.
Insane. insane. If that rookie kicker, they put him in a position to make a field goal too. And that's wild, right? So also some coordinators, Matt Eberflus from the Cowboys let go, Cliff Kingsbury from the Commanders, mutually parted ways. John Morton from the Lions.
Yep.
Any of these guys, I kind of accented my voice there because one of those guys really catches my eye. But any of those guys you think could be a good fit for the Lions staff?
To me, for OC, I want somebody that's not necessarily cut from the Dan Campbell cloth. I want somebody outside the box, and my guy isn't on that list yet. He hasn't been dismissed from Miami yet, but here's hoping. Other than that, I know you have a guy.
I think Cliff Kingsbury would bring something with guardrails, right? Like he has a little bit of a finesse offense. Man, it would be a match made in heaven with a Dan Campbell to mix a little bit of that grit and with a little bit of his finesse. He's creative. Everywhere he goes, it's a pretty instant impact to his fingerprints.
I'm not against it. I would love to be able to take that off, those play calling duties off of Dan Campbell, let him go back to the CEO. My concern would be the turnaround and how quickly can our offense take on a Cliff Kingsbury offense.
Yeah, and I think it's a veteran group. It's a veteran quarterback. I think that can happen quickly. The issue you have is I think the same issue that the Patriots used to have and some of the better coaching staffs. John Harbaugh had the same thing. Is I think the Lions are an attractive situation right now, especially on the offensive side of the ball. I look at the weapons, potentially the best combination of wide receivers out there.
Top 10 in yards for the top two, right?
Yeah. Laporta, top 10 tight end out there. I think the best running back in the game and maybe the best 1-2 punch out there. Mm-hmm. You got to solve some offensive line, but if that's all you got to solve, everything else is there.
Solved.
So if I'm a Kingsbury was a head coach and trying to retread back into it, the Lions are an attractive job to go there, do well for a couple of years, and then get yourself a job.
I need somebody who's going to bring a fresh voice to this team. The only concern would be the learning curve that comes with it, right? And would Dan Campbell give up, his offense?
Which here's what scares me is quick. I don't know how serious this name is, but we talked about David Blau.
Yeah.
What this tells me is he's an assistant quarterback coach. This tells me that Dan is very interested in calling plays, and he wants basically an assistant offensive coordinator, a guy that's training up to the job, and is okay with being kind of the beta coordinator.
But would David Blau be your next Ben Johnson, where you are able to have Dan Campbell call the plays at the beginning of the season and maybe transition to a David Blau doing more of that heavy lifting as the season goes on, where once there's trust established, maybe there's that creativity, maybe there's that, that excitement that Ben Johnson brought. Is David Blau, my only question would be, is David Blau the orchestrator of an offense, of Dan Campbell's offense that Ben Johnson was? And I think that's what he's looking for.
Ryan, would you agree that our Super Bowl window is open for next year and the year after?
I would agree that is if we're able to fix an offensive line. That's even with a subpar defense, I think with the pieces that we have, they're still there. We still need to fix that offensive line.
All right, so our window's there. There's some roster gymnastics that are going to have to happen. So you're talking about, going out there and getting a guy, and then if halfway through the year he can trust them, like when you married your wife Lisa, did you say hey, I'm gonna get married to you, and then if 5 years into this marriage I can trust you, maybe we'll take the next step and have kids? Or did you go out there and in your process interview, talk to the ladies, and then date this person long enough to realize that you could trust her to get married into your life Super Bowl window?
How
What
do
are we?
I answer that?
What are we doing? Hiring a guy that we might be able to work our way into trust halfway through the season. That is asinine for a team that the window is open. Let Dan Campbell be the CEO. Let him put his fingerprints where he needs to put his fingerprints. Macroly, microly, we need a guy that's what we did last year with John Morton. We said, hey, you're a chip off the old block. I think we can trust you a little bit.
I don't disagree. I'm guessing, I'm speculating on what the vision is, right? I hope they bring Mike McDaniel in, somebody who is innovative, creative.
He's currently interviewing people for the GM job right now.
And I hope that GM that he hires fires him, and then he can be the offensive coordinator for the Detroit Lions, because I think that that's somebody. Cliff Kingsbury might be that guy who can bring in some innovation, bring in some outside perspective to the Detroit Lions so that we don't become stagnant. Somebody who can bring that excitement, that fun. Because I have to tell you, as much as I loved Ben Johnson as the Detroit Lions OC, as an orchestrator, because he brought in fun. He brought in some spice. Do I think that he was perfect? No, but the players loved playing for him. They got excited to come to work every day, and I want that continue. And I think that on the offensive side of the ball, I want that to continue. I didn't see nearly that with John Morton or even Dan Campbell, as much as Dan Campbell wants to try to do that. I think Dan Campbell can get there with an offseason, but I don't want to put that on him either. I'd rather Dan Campbell be the CEO.
We've come full circle here, folks. We've started this podcast with Brian being very okay with Dan Campbell potentially calling plays, to now Brian being like, hey, I want my coach to be the general CEO of this.
I don't want you to misconstrue my words. I've said from the very beginning that we are a better team when Dan Campbell's the CEO.
Okay, all right.
But I don't believe that Dan Campbell's willing to give all of those pieces based on Dan Campbell's words to someone else, because that person can be snatched away after a year and we're back in this situation again.
If your coaches are getting snatched away after a year, that means you had some success in the field.
That is true. But the turnover and the turmoil that goes on there and the unknown is shaky. It's scary, right?
Don't tell me that is true, but tell me that is true, and that means the Lions had some instant success there. So this is the window. This is the time to have that success. This is the time we talked about, like our capologists taking interviews for roles with other teams. That's great. Our assistant GM taking interviews for the same, a heightened role on another team. Those are great problems to have in his organizations, right? Like your coach keeping guys down so he can keep continuity. That's not a sustainable level of success. That coach is always going to be there, or he's going to get his ass fired because he is not getting these guys that he trusts to take that part of the ownership of the team.
That's fair. But Dan Campbell is also understands that consistency also helps a team win games.
You're welcome for me getting Brian fired up. You are welcome. So is there anybody else that is front of mind for you to maybe join this Lions coaching staff?
I'm sure there is, and we'll get into that as the offseason continues to unfold. We're fresh. We're fresh into it. We're gonna have coaching changes. We're gonna have adjustments in our own coaching staff. Is Hank Fraley gonna get interviews to be an OC again somewhere else? No, probably not.
He's not. You want to know why? Because the Lions didn't make the playoffs.
Right.
And the line looked like crap, and it wasn't his fault, but we get to keep him.
Yeah.
Right? And that's a product of not having success, Brian. If this team is, 15-2 again, he's taking interviews to be the offensive coordinator wherever he wants to go. It's good to have your guys go. That means good things happen.
Fair enough.
So, woo!
You're fired up. Not nearly as grumpy as last week.
Let's go another 50. Still a little grumpy, but maybe not nearly as grumpy. So, please let us know in the comments if there's anything that that you feel here, if there's names that we're not talking about, that you want us to do a deep dive into, or if you just want to get in there and do some banter, we're happy to banter. I know how to do that in the comments. Maybe I don't make videos, or I don't do a TikTok. I never learned that dance, but like, let's get after it in the comments. I'm all about that. Anything else before we sign off?
Listen, man, we appreciate all of our viewers. We appreciate all those folks that take their time to pass time with us. Do us a favor and like and subscribe. Get us on the algorithm. Go check us out on TikTok. I try to put stuff out there as often as I can. Instagram is something I'm still trying to learn. I basically post the same things on there twice. And then YouTube. We're at anywhere you can find your podcasts. And if we're doing something you like, tell us. And if we're doing something you don't like, tell us. We're far from perfect, and we're going to continue to grow. And going into season 2, we still got some ideas, some excitement, and hopefully we can get better.
I think we're going to be the off-season kings of podcasting, and I think we did a good job last year. So let us know. This is the end of season 1. If you've hung out with us all season 1, shout out to you. Disappointed in my sister-in-law, who I shouted out last week, who didn't comment that I shouted her out, Nikki, because I thought she was one of our most loyal. I thought she was right next to Miss Elizabeth, and I was worried that she was right next to Miss Elizabeth because I didn't hear from her in my text. But hey, come on. Let's keep this going. Keep listening. Keep commenting. Keep liking. Keep subscribing. Tell your friends about it. Let's make season 2 even better.
Yep. And we'll see you next week.
And we appreciate you passing time with us. We are a Detroit Lions podcast. Stay gritty. Go Lions.